Welcome, everybody, to the Voice of the Coalition. This is the podcast of the Insurance Marketing Coalition. I'm your host, Bill DeCourcy, and for anybody new here, I'm the IMC's immediate past president, and I still sit on the board of directors of the IMC. We are live today with all of you, so the chat is your microphone. If you have questions, drop them in there anytime, and we'll pull them in as we go. Please don't wait for the end. We want to hear your questions when you have them so we can answer them in real time. So today's episode has a title that I love, IMC's Proud Past and Bright Future. I get to do two of my favorite things in one setting. I get to look back at what this coalition pulled off in its first stretch and introduce you, if you don't already know her, to the person carrying it forward. Because this last month, as you might have heard, the IMC elected a new president, and I could not be happier about who it is. My guest today is Rachel Honoway, the newly elected president of the Insurance Marketing Coalition. Rachel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me, Bill.
You got it. So let me just take a moment here and tell everybody why Rachel is such a strong pick for this role. Rachel, you don't know her, she has a great story. She spent more than 20 years leading performance marketing teams going back to the earliest days of online partnerships and affiliate marketing. She was building sales and products teams for SaaS startups before most people even knew what affiliate marketing was. She was the CEO of FFTC, one of the most trusted data and tooling providers in the affiliate world. She served 2 terms as president of the Performance Marketing Association, and Affiliate Summit named her as a marketing legend with its Pinnacle Award. So that's real peer recognition, the kind you can't buy, the kind that has launched her into this role with the IMC. And we're thankful that she's brought all of that into our world. As chief marketing officer at eTelequote, she ran consumer acquisition inside of Medicare insurance business, so she knows insurance from the inside, just not the theory of the case. And she's now the founder of Delta Catalyst Lab, an executive coaching firm that serves several advertising and marketing clients. And she's a certified Simon Sinek why coach, which tells you something about how she leads. She starts with the why. Rachel actually served as our vice president before this, so she already knows how the coalition really works, the good parts and the messy parts. Now she's got the top job, and the timing could not be better.
Thanks, Bill. I don't know if I can live up to all of that. I don't that's great.
We're all counting on you to live up to that. But before I put you on the spot, we promised a retrospective and a look forward. So before I hand it over to you to talk about where we're going, let me tell you about where we've been. And this is an opportunity for me to be very honest with you about the hard parts too, frankly, because the story is probably better that way. So take you back to the beginning. The IMC launched in around November of 2023 at the NAIC Fall National Meeting in Orlando. A group of us, there were carriers, agencies, marketing organizations, technology folks, sat down around a table and discussed a simple idea. The insurance marketing the insurance marketing industry needed a voice. And more importantly than that, we needed to hold ourselves to a real standard before somebody else did it for us. So we came up with a plan. We were going to crawl, we were going to walk, and we were going to run. We're going to stand up a code of conduct, get members meeting every week, build trust slowly, and do it right. Looking back on those days, I think that was the plan for maybe 5 minutes, because the FCC happened. Right as we were finding our feet, the FCC finalized what became known as the one-to-one consent rule. If you were anywhere near lead generation, you probably remember the panic. So looking back, what would that rule have done? It would have blown up multi-seller consent. Every time a consumer filled out a comparison form, they would have had to have individually named and consent to each business that could contact them one at a time. And that consent had to be logically and topically tied to that exact web page. So sounds good on paper, maybe from the outside. Why does it matter so much? It's because multi-seller consent is the foundation of how insurance shopping works online. Comparison sites, aggregators, the whole referral economy across insurance and even industries outside of insurance, mortgage, solar, all of it. Overnight, the rule would have wiped it out. People who track this called it the single biggest regulatory threat to lead generation in decades. So much for our plan to crawl. Here we were. a brand new coalition barely stood up, and we had a choice. We could sit it out as others decided to do, or we could step up. And we ended up stepping up in a tremendous way. We took the Federal Communications Commission to court. We took them to court. That's still stunning given where we were in the evolution of our organization. We filed a petition in the 11th Circuit, the Insurance Marketing Coalition versus the FCC. It was us, a startup trade group, versus a federal agency on the biggest issue that our industry had faced in a generation. So crawl, walk, run, we became professional runners very quickly. We went from crawling to competing in the 100-meter dash in the Olympics in less than a year. And here's the part that still brings out some emotion in me. The rule was set to take effect on January 27, 2025. On January 24th, which is just one business day before it went live, the 11th Circuit ruled. They ruled unanimously, and they vacated the rule. The court found the FCC had gone past its authority under the TCPA. The TCPA, as we all know, is the law that requires prior express consent. It did not let the agency bolt on extra requirements that the statute never mentioned. We had one business day to spare, and the whole thing was struck down. So the coalition that was still standing itself up went toe-to-toe with a federal agency and won on the merits on behalf of an entire industry. That's the highlight from our proud past. Now, I promised you honesty. So let's talk about some of the hard parts as well. I don't know how many people know this, but early on, we made an agreement to bring in a firm called PACE as our professional administrative services partner. They were going to be our engine room, membership, operations, technology, the entire back office. And shortly, and I mean weeks, if not days after we finalized that agreement, PACE, they went out of business, and it hurt. It cost us funds that we had on deposit with them. We had to rebuild. It cost us time. For a young organization, that's the kind of setback that can end you. But it didn't. We rebuilt. And honestly, we came out stronger because it pushed us to build our own team instead of just renting one. And today we have a great team. The IMC has 2 dedicated employees, Sean Green, our executive director who runs the organization day to day, and Caitlin Edwards, our head of business development, who's out there growing our business, our membership, and our reach every single day. If you've dealt with the IMC lately, odds are you've talked to one of them, and they're just tremendous people. We're very blessed to have them on board. So that's the arc, that's the past, that's the history, that's the story. We plan to crawl. And the FCC, they made us run. PACE knocked us down. We got back up with a real team of our own, which brings me to today and why I'm genuinely excited. I got to help start this thing. Great honor, one of the biggest professional honors of my life. Rachel, she gets to help grow it up, and she's inheriting an IMC on far more solid ground than the one we scrambled to build at the very beginning. A landmark legal win on the board, a real staff, a growing membership, and a clear code of conduct. The future is bright for the IMC, and it's in very good hands. So, Rachel, I have been talking for a long time, and before I turn it over, a reminder to everybody watching, this is your show too. The chat is open. Send your questions for Rachel and for me, and I'll work them in as we go. And I'm seeing a lot of, you'll see I'm looking over to my right here where my comments are, and yeah, there's just an incredible amount of enthusiasm here. Rachel, let's start there. So you're a certified Start With Why coach. So I have to ask, what is your why for the IMC, and what made you say, yes, I want to do this, run for office and win?
Yeah. Oh, that is a great question. Deep question right off the bat. So my why is deeply rooted in clearing paths. I really want to find untapped potential and clear paths for it, and that is my personal why. And I see that here in the IMC, and I think that is what we do. We're looking to clear the path for ethical marketers. We want to make sure that those of us that are doing things the right way can continue doing things the right way, that our industries, our practices, our tactics aren't tainted by the people who are out there trying to fly in, make a quick buck, and get out and get to the next thing. And unfortunately, that's what happens in markets where there is a lot of money to be made, right? Medicare, ACA. We saw how quickly that happened in the ACA market. I mean, that was what, 5-year stint there. I mean, that was really, really fast for that thing
Very
to tank.
fast.
Yeah, yeah. So for me, this is really an opportunity for us as professional marketers to put a stake in the ground and say, this is how it's done. This is how it needs to be done. And if you're going to play in this arena, you need to play by these rules.
That's absolutely a very, very strong why. So, what are your priorities for your term, and what do you hope to accomplish here in the next 12 months? I know that your term is longer than that, but this business moves so quickly. It's probably unfair for me to ask you to speculate out beyond that. But talk to me a little bit about what you have in mind for IMC in terms of its growth, your priorities, and goals for your presidency.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've been talking with members. So that's my first 30 to 90 days. If you haven't heard from Caitlin already asking to set up a time to meet with me, you will. So I would really like to talk to as many members as possible to hear what's going on inside of your businesses. I know that more than anything, we are in a time of change. And I know that we can all say that at so many different points in history, but especially right now at the pace of change that AI is bringing, and particularly that pace that it's bringing to marketing, I think that we are all on our toes and we're all figuring out what's next and we're facing challenges day after day. So I really want to see how our members are facing these changes and what we as a coalition can do together. How can we how can we band together? How can we take the fact that, like you said, we're meeting on a weekly basis? I have not been part of a group before. I've been part of masterminds where people are paying thousands of dollars a month. I've been part of groups where you're committed to things. I've never been part of a group like this where people are committed to meeting for an hour every single week to talk about issues and be together and learn from one another the way that this group has. So the fact that we have that kind of momentum, that commitment, and that collaboration, I want to know how we can work together to support each other as we're facing these challenges so that we can come out on the other side stronger, because nothing is sure. We don't know what's going to happen, but we know it's going to be different. We know things are going to change. We know that regulation is not going to keep up. We know that the people who are going to try to take advantage of change are going to come in and do that swoop in and try to muddy the waters. So we have to be on our toes. We have to be watching out, and we need to be working together during this time. So I really do think, back to your crawl, walk, run that we had talked about. Now we're going to be in that, like, dancing and jumping
That's right.
as we're as a group. So it'll be a little bit of a different time here.
And I think that speaks to one of the structural advantages and cultural advantages that we've built here at IMC, which is
Yeah.
we are all committed to that weekly 1 hour meeting, which when you are dancing and dodging and adjusting and being agile, nobody at the IMC, if you attend your meetings, is out of the know. I come to those meetings and I am constantly surprised by what I am learning from our guests and participants. I mean,
Mhm.
it's a rather inexpensive organization to join. If you are in this business, you need to be in this coalition, if only for those 50 or 51 meetings every single year that you go to, you learn something at, and you bring something back to your council, you bring something back to your compliance team, you bring something back to your marketing team, you bring something back for yourself that you have to look into. We were just talking about, CIPRA, like at a meeting the other day, about
Yeah.
the immense, tsunami that may be coming down the road when it comes to these wiretapping lawsuits. Now, who the hell is thinking about how I might be considered a wiretapper under California law? Well, if you're not, you should be. And if you were there a few weeks ago and we talked about this, you know exactly what's happening, you know exactly how to keep yourself safe, and you know exactly what actions you should take. I mean, it is absolutely the culture that we've built to give ourselves that weekly newsroom in order to be able to dance and be agile, as you just said.
Yeah.
Rachel, we have a question. And like I like to say on these broadcasts, it wouldn't be a Voice of the Coalition a podcast without a very smart question from our very own Farzine. Farzine asks Rachel, as regulatory scrutiny increases across health and Medicare marketing, some questionable operators appear to be shifting towards auto, home, and life insurance. Do you see IMC expanding its standards, education, and industry engagement to address these markets as well? That is a wonderful, important question. Rachel,
Yeah.
what do you think?
Yeah, it is a great question, and we've been talking about this, I think, quite openly in our meetings, weekly meetings as well. Where does the IMC go? Bill, like you said, we showed that we have a lot of power. We're small but mighty. We can make a giant impact. Where do we take that impact? Do we take it into other industries? Do we take it deeper into agents and touch them more deeply inside of healthcare? Where do we take this impact? So I think that remains to be seen. We need to figure out where that goes. As I've been talking to some of our members, one thing that I've been hearing from them is, let's not force it. Let's get there organically. Are we seeing the education and auto and home? Are they coming to us and asking us for this expertise? Are we seeing them? Are we seeing them say, "Hey, I've heard of the IMC. I see that they're attacking these things. I need that kind of help. I'm going there." If we're drawing that in because of our amazing education, because we get our best standards practices launched and out there, and people are talking about it. If these kinds of things are drawing in those industries, I think that it makes a lot of sense. Um, uh, Same thing with agents. If agents are seeing that the IMC is a place that is providing them with information that they're not getting from the carriers, or they're not getting maybe from other associations that they belong to that are more of networking associations. If this is more of that impact and that education and more of the compliance that they need, then that's an area where we can go deeper. So I think I'll just be really honest and say it remains to be seen. And I like the idea of having an organic approach to that.
Yep. You're absolutely right. And I agree with that approach 100%. We want to make this an attractive place, and more importantly than that, a valuable place for these additional industries to learn information. And sure, we're focused mostly on the Medicare and senior health spaces and on the ACA spaces. But the fact of the matter is, I don't want to say that it's a matter of fate, but it's going to be a matter of opportunity when there is a challenge that comes up that rises to the level of a discussion within our group, and we find a solution for it. That then will bring the participants into those groups, rather than artificially going out and saying, we are now the experts in in auto policy marketing. Like, there's a little bit of lack of credibility there, right?
Mhm.
That being said, if anybody, wants to come to the table with ideas, I know, Rachel, your door is always open for that. As you just said earlier, you're talking to all of our members, and you're not building an agenda based on something that you're seeing academically here at the top of an ivory tower. You're building it from the bottom up, saying, what is it that you actually need? And I think we can all appreciate that.
Yeah. Yep.
It's great. Well, Farzine actually just he actually asked the next question that I was going to ask, which was about
Okay.
expanding our membership here. Do
Mhm.
you want to talk a little bit about what's happening with state regulation, and where you think the next big compliance pressure is going to come from? Is it going to be CMS? Is it going to be trying to navigate all the several mazed-like roads that contribute to being compliant on a state by state basis? Where do you think the biggest challenges to the core industry that we serve right now is for the next 12 months?
Yeah, I think that that's a really good question, and we we kind of have all of these discussions in little pockets everywhere. Um, this. I think we're sort of on a whether you're going to call it a peak or a valley, depending on if you're looking at federal or state regulations. We've been sort of in a valley of federal regulation, and when something like that happens, states start to get a little antsy. They see that as their opportunity to drive regulation, to grab power. So
Mhm.
when the state sees that federal government isn't making regulations, they see CMS went a little light. They were focused a little bit more on commission. They were focused a little bit more on plan design. They weren't focused so much on marketing. They weren't focused so much on activities. Maybe states will start to look at what they can control. They'll start to look at more of the commerce side of things. They'll start to look at more of the things that they think they can regulate. And their intent typically is to push that to a national level, right? Some of the things that we see in California all of a sudden start to get picked up in another state and another state and another state. And before we know it, then it gets taken to the federal level. So we do see that sort of trend if we look back over time. But I do think that we should expect over the next 2 years, until we get into the next presidential election cycle, at least, that we'll see more coming from the states as they are all jockeying for that power until it comes from the federal government again.
Yeah, it's an interesting world that we're all learning about here. I've been in this business now for 6 years, so I every day is I'm learning something new every single day, and that is be careful what you wish for. I think all of us under the previous administration were very concerned with what we believe were the well, we said this in court that the onerous and non-statutorily documented rules that were coming out, right? We were all thinking about that and oh my gosh, this has got to stop. So it has stopped for the most part. But now you're thrown back to the several states who are coming in and saying exactly as you just put, we are going to develop things that are more forward thinking, a little detached from the reality of the world, but forward thinking when it comes to consumer protections. And then it becomes a maze that you need to navigate that doesn't just have this one path that you know if you follow that you're going to be compliant, but rather the path depends on where you're domesticated as a business, where you are storing data, where you are making calls, where you have affiliate partnerships. It's very difficult. And I think one of the things that's going to be very important about ongoing IMC membership is we talk about this pretty regularly in terms of what different states are contemplating doing, what they are doing, things to watch out for so that you can better protect yourself without having to, become an expert in all of these areas yourself. It's interesting. All of us are enamored. Most of us are enamored right now with AI, right? You can go in and you can ask AI a question and it'll get you an immediate response. And the IMC kind of serves that purpose a little bit as well, where you can join this group and you can get access to experts and you can ask a question. And unlike the chat GPTs and the Claudes of this world, there is no lag between the information being released and the information being shared. You ask an IMC member who's in the know about what's happening. And if it's in their area of expertise, you're going to get the most up-to-date information. Which, Rachel, if you'll allow me, that kind of segues me into this next question, which is, if you're amongst the people watching this live, or maybe you're watching it on YouTube a little bit later and you're thinking, this seems like a dynamic organization. This seems like a successful organization. This seems like a growing organization. What's your pitch for organizations that are considering membership to join us, to make the coalition stronger and to make themselves stronger by participating in it?
Yeah, we would really like people to come and join us at least for one meeting to see what it's like. And you get a really good taste of the value you get from your membership by joining one of our meetings.
Mhm.
Bill, you mentioned this earlier. We have people coming and presenting in our meetings and giving blueprints for exactly how to address the issues that are facing us every single day. And these are issues that you would, one, have to be aware of if if you're even aware of these things to start with. Two, you'd have to have an expert come in and talk to you about them. And then three, you'd have to come up with a plan yourself on how to attack it. And instead of all of that, you show up at a meeting once a week and somebody says, here you go, here's a blueprint. You should follow this. Otherwise, you may be sued by all of these companies in California.
Mhm.
So,
And
yeah.
it's very interesting you'd put it that way because I'm reminded of some of the superstar members that we have in the coalition. Like Helene Fingal comes to our meetings. People, I mean, if you don't know who she is, then you probably aren't as well connected in this space as you think you are. I mean, she's not offering legal advice. That would be inappropriate. But, her and Aaron Perry and all of these other lawyers who are very prominent in this space are saying, this is the way we're thinking about it. Your mileage might vary. Consult with your own, with your own advisors on this, but here's how we're thinking about it. I mean, these are multi-$100 an hour, if not thousands of dollars an hour lawyers who are sitting in our group and are generously sharing their advice as to how to go about at least conceptualizing the challenges that we have. Mike just mentioned Mike Ross, one of our board members, just mentioned in the chat here, mini TCPAs. Holy cow. I mean, the idea that you can get, somebody to say, this is what you should be looking at, who gets paid to do this, a lot of money deservedly, just because you're a member of the coalition, it's huge value.
It's huge. Absolutely. And yeah, you're right. The legal minds that are coming to our meetings, and then also the technology providers, the people who they're looking at what's coming next, what's around the corner, what's going to be the next thing coming in AI, what will be the next platform that's coming out. All of us are so rooted in what we're working on every single day. And I mean, Bill, you're a technology person, you're a platform person, that there are new things coming, and all of the opportunities that are going to be available to people, and that everybody else is still thinking in what they were doing last year. So those kinds of things are coming out in our meetings, and people are thinking forward and thinking ahead to what might be available to them, and that's not something that they're getting anywhere else. You wait for a conference every year to get something like that, or you get it once a week by coming to these meetings.
You're absolutely right, Rachel. And you're right. I am a technology person. I am an early AI and heavy AI adopter. I'm also a marketing person, which unfortunately means I'm legally required to point to this sign over here and say, follow me on socials at Professor Leeds. Sorry, that was meant to be a little lighthearted aside. But in any case, you're absolutely right. AI, that's interesting. If we think that consent regulations are complicated, wait until you hear about what's coming down the pike when it comes to AI. And here's the thing: where do you draw the line? And do we want a seat at the table when we talk about drawing this line? And we'll get more into advocacy here in a moment, but think about this. If you're using any kind of AI augmented generation, and a rule comes out that says you must disclose AI and you must do it in a conspicuous manner, how do you toe that line? Let's say, for example, I use AI to help me come up with marketing variants that are rewritten in my own voice. Does that cross a line? If I'm using generative AI imagery, that probably crosses a line. That's pretty clear. But what if I'm using an AI workflow to post information to the internet and
Right.
I'm into my ad manager? What if I'm using AI to optimize my ad spend? I mean, I love
Where
the
is the
fact
line?
exactly. I personally love the fact that we have a lot of dedicated civil servants in Washington, D.C. and in the state capitals around this wonderful country of ours who are looking to protect consumers and are looking to do the right thing. And I'm probably going to get railed in the comments for saying this, but if they had the expertise necessary to make those decisions, I don't think that they would be bureaucrats. And
Right.
why? So what do we need to do? Rachel, would you agree? We have a responsibility educationally, not just to our membership, but also to the people that are making these rules so that they can understand what a good rule looks like versus a ludicrous rule.
We absolutely do. And this is funny. I was just talking to somebody about this a couple of weeks ago. So my oldest son is going to be 24 in a couple of weeks, and I was remembering back to when I was pregnant with him. I was traveling back and forth to the Chicago FTC offices,
Mhm.
sitting in a room with regulators who were writing the Can-Spam Act. And the rule, as it first started at that time, was all about protecting consumers from getting unwanted email. And now today, right, we think about email as like, well, you just clear out your
Right.
inbox.
Sure.
But back then, I mean, it was the devil, right?
Mhm.
Everybody was against email. It was the biggest thing that everybody was talking about. You would turn on news, and all of the people on the Today Show were complaining about how much email they had in their AOL inboxes. It was crazy. So the regulators at that time, that was what they were focused on. And they had blinders on. All they could see was, we have to stop this horrible thing from happening. All of these people getting all of these emails. So it took a whole group of us sitting down and educating them. And that's exactly what you're talking about. We had to educate them and talk them through, yeah, there are emails that people should not be getting. But at the same time, new technologies were coming in, like, I don't know, signing into an account, like your Amazon account. That was new at that time. You used your email address to sign into
Right.
an account. Now we do that for everything, right? Now we have single sign-on, we have all of these things, and it's all tied to our Gmail accounts usually, right? Or our Microsoft accounts, our email address.
Usually.
None of that would have been possible had the original can spam language survived, because
That's
email
incredible.
was the devil. So, yes, the education piece for our regulators is huge, and they're not unreasonable. It's just
No, not at all.
the initial information they get puts puts the marketer in the seat of a bad actor. And it
Mhm.
just takes a little bit to show them, sure, there are bad actors, but then there are also very, very reasonable uses for these channels. And this is why we need to preserve room for the good players.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And this preparing for this conversation caused me to do, obviously, as we heard for the first 10 minutes of me blathering on at the beginning, a lot of reflection. And I reflected a little bit on whether or not we'd been successful in different areas of our mission. Certainly, there's been areas of huge success. Certainly, there's been areas where we could have done a better job. And one of the areas that I was kind of on the fence was about this education of the regulators.
Mm.
And I came out of that thinking exercise with a different attitude and a different conclusion that I'd gone into it with, which I thought, what have we really done? Have we sat down in front of Dr. Oz and made our case for a certain Medicare rule? We haven't. But I will tell you, and we're nerds here, a lot of us, when it comes to Medicare regulation and the CMS rules. If you read through the CMS final rule, I can think of 4 or 5 instances where the point of view that we have promulgated through our comment letters have been shown in those regulations as being seen and as being heard. Now, there is no citation that says, thank God for the IMC. They pointed out this, logical inconsistency in this way that this would burden business. But if you read between the lines and you understand and have followed the process from beginning to end, you can see that our educational mission has actually been much more successful than we give ourselves credit for. We've used the comment letter process to do that. We've used some meetings with some people, director level and above at the Centers for Medicare for CMS. We've been pretty successful in that area. Have we had those face-to-face meetings yet? No. Are we going there? Well, on this trajectory, I think we might be.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that you're right, that we can see our fingerprints, and that spread of that information, was it directly to Oz? No, but did we get to some of those other people? Yes, and did we get to layers and layers? Even educating carriers has been a big piece for us. Um, there are so many conversations I had during those comment writing periods where I would get on the phone with carriers and just say to them, "Please just listen to me on this point. I need you to understand where we're coming from." And I would talk to their compliance, their chief compliance officer or their compliance teams, and they would just see it in a different light. They didn't understand why those points mattered to us. And once they did, those would show up all of a sudden in their comment letters, right? They would show up in their conversations. They had the direct lines. So the fact that we took the time to have those conversations, we took the time to really dissect what was happening in each of those rules, and what might happen. I think that that's something that we did a good job with. We didn't just look at the rule and say, like, do we like it? Don't we? What would happen if this did go into effect? What would happen what are the why can't I think of the word? What are the knock-on effects,
Consequences.
right?
Yeah, what are the
Yeah.
consequences? Sure,
Yeah, yeah. I think that
absolutely.
we did a good job playing those through to really think about what mattered and then what didn't. We left some of them alone. Like, go ahead, make that rule. And we really focused on the ones that mattered.
Yeah, we're very reasonable in our comments. One of the things that I've just following up on that, one of the things that I've enjoyed here with my day job at AmeriLife is I don't run our government relations department or anything like that. I happen to be close with the person who does. And one of the ways our relationship has gotten close is because when we were talking about what AmeriLife is going to say in our comment letters, whether or not we're going to say it at all, the starting point is what the IMC is saying about it, which is a great um, advantage for our company. And what's interesting is sometimes AmeriLife doesn't say exactly what the Insurance Marketing Coalition says, and that's very healthy. And I can
Mhm.
appreciate that. And it's important to have people in these seats that can look at things from both sides of things, from kind of the closed idea of working within your organization, what's best for them, but also what's best for the industry. And
Mhm.
if you get involved with the IMC, the great news is you get to push a little of your own company's purview into this thing. Hey, what's realistic for me? I'm a good operator. I need this flexibility. And you get to push back within your own organization. It says, hey, maybe we aren't collectively thinking about this the right way because people in the organization have a point of view that may be a little bit more extended than ours, and we should be thinking about this more holistically. So you come to that balance where the letters aren't going to be verbatim copies of one another, but the point of view is very much homogenized to what's best for everybody when you're involved at that level. So I've already given you my pitch for joining. I'm going to give you my second pitch right now, which is leadership. Any of you that have taken the time to either join this live or to watch this later on, it's very likely that you have a interest in and a talent for and a passion to pursue what's best for this industry. So by all means, join the IMC. If you haven't already, as Rachel suggested, attend a meeting. When you attend a meeting and when you see the value it brings and when you join, consider leadership opportunities here because frankly, there are always opportunities to serve. There are always opportunities to become part of this leadership team. There are always opportunities to come onto this podcast and give a point of view. It really does open up the ability for somebody who may be frustrated in the space that they work to change the space and where they work.
Yeah, absolutely. And unlike anybody that maybe served on an HOA or maybe right, Bill, did you do that once?
I,
Yeah.
I still do. Got a
this,
meeting coming up. You know,
this yeah, this isn't the type of organization where you serve and everybody comes to you with complaints and it's, you're not the complaint department. Like Bill said, this is really an opportunity to make a difference, to make an impact. We have our board. Our board is a great group of people. We discuss a lot of different opportunities that come to us, ideas and initiatives that come to us. And then we also have our committees, and our committees are where a lot of work gets done. We do our education pieces in our committees. We're talking about specific initiatives in our committees, like our government relations. We'll do our comment letters. We'll respond to specific things that are happening, and things happen fast. Like like Bill said, if a state is going to act on something or the federal government is acting on something, we have to act fast. We'll spin up a committee and people act fast. So those are the opportunities to jump in and get active and have your voice heard when these types of things are actually going on.
absolutely. Rachel, were there any other points that you wanted to cover off on? I'm looking at the comments. I'm not seeing anything there that needs to be addressed live. Although this, you can consider this your last call if you're in the comments and you want to ask something. Anything from you that you'd like to talk about before we bring it to a close?
Yeah, no, I just, I'll follow up on what you said at the beginning and really that we have had such a great run so far for such a young coalition. This group got started. We had the rockiest start you could absolutely imagine. And we got through it and won this amazing lawsuit. And now we are sitting at this point where we really can step into a bright future, continue making a big impact on ethical marketing. So everybody who is very interested in that, let's do it. Let's do it together. We really can make that happen.
A bright future led by Madam President, newly elected Rachel Honoway. Rachel, thank you very much for joining us. But thank you even more for your leadership over the entirety of the IMC's lifespan, from your time as vice president to your new tenure as president. We wish you all the success in the world, and we are here to support you in any way we can. And if you're considering joining the IMC, some actions that you can take today. You can reach out to me. You can reach out to Sean Green. You can reach out to Caitlin Edwards. Their email addresses are available in the invite that got you to this place. If you're watching on our YouTube channel, there'll be contact information there. We want you to come in, no obligation, join the meeting, see if what we are promising is actually delivered. I'm confident that you will. And then we can talk about not only how you can participate with the IMC, but also leadership opportunities I mentioned earlier that are available through the IMC. This is the Voice of the Coalition. We do this once a month. We're looking forward to seeing you again in approximately 30 days. We'll be sending out invitations on that particular podcast here shortly. If you have any questions, reach out to us, and thank you very much for joining us.